So hi everybody, thank you for watching this pre-recorded webinar on the Toy Show Fund. And this video will be posted on our website and it's going to be available for the whole duration that the grant round is open. So we're just going to run through a quick agenda and we expect that this presentation to take around half an hour. So we're going to run through who the Community Foundation for Ireland is, so who we are and what we do, what the RTE Toy Show Appeal is, and what the three strands are. So ensuring basic needs, improving well-being, and reducing inequality through creative engagement. We're then going to go through how to apply and what the online application process looks like. We'll run through a few hints and tips in terms of your own application. And then finally look at some frequently asked questions that we receive to help you with your own questions that you might have. Anything that we don't cover in this PowerPoint in this presentation, you can email us at info@foundation.ie and we'll get back to you on your questions. We do expect that this grant round will be quite busy, that we're going to expect a lot of applications. So please be patient in terms of our replying to your queries through the info email address. So firstly, who is the Community Foundation for Ireland? So we're a registered charity. We're a philanthropic organisation that was established in the year 2000 to support the non-profit sector in Ireland and to encourage this growth in philanthropy. Community foundations all across the world act as a bridge between individuals, companies and families who want to give back to their communities via philanthropy, and then those who need support in their communities themselves. The Community Foundation for Ireland aims to provide advice and guidance to philanthropists and community organisations to turn sort of giving in the moment into impactful and strategic grant making. So we provide our own grants from our endowed fund, usually around themes and issue areas such as gender equality, climate action, or amplifying the voices of marginalised groups. And then we also hold a number of donor advised funds who make grants in line with the donor's interests. And then throughout the year, we run a number of open grant rounds. So for more information on this, please see our website in terms of the background to these grant rounds and when they will open. So our values sort of dictate everything that we do, including the grants that we make, so that we make sure that everything is in line with these values, which are integrity, collaboration, diversity and inclusion, and leadership. So this is what we look for also in the grant applications that we receive. So last year was our largest year of grant making to date. When COVID-19 and the restrictions hit, the Community Foundation for Ireland and our donors really focused on supporting the organisations at the front line of their communities across the whole country. And the generosity of the Irish public meant that we raised €6 million with the RTE Does Comic Relief Night. And through this fund, we granted nearly 700 grants, which ranged from €900 to €180,000. So throughout the whole year, we made 1,400 individual grants, totaling €14.8 million, and the average grant was around €10,000. So since we started in 2000, over €70 million of grant aid has been distributed by the Community Foundation for Ireland. So I'm going to hand over to Adele, who's going to talk you through a little bit about the Toy Show Appeal.
Thanks, Rosie. So today I'm going to talk you through the RTE Toy Show grants round and how to apply. The Toy Show Appeal was established to raise funds for Irish children's charities through the televised Late Late Show late last year. Throughout the night, over 6 million was raised to support a variety of organisations that support vulnerable children. 50% of the funds raised have now been donated to the three charity partners, Barnardo's, Children's Books Ireland and the Children's Health Foundation. The remaining 50% will be distributed as grants to organisations who support vulnerable children across the country, through ourselves at the Community Foundation for Ireland and through the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland. So the Toy Show Grants Round has three strands, and they are ensuring basic needs, improving well-being, and reducing inequality through creativity. And the timeline for this grants round is as follows. As you know, we opened for applications last week on Friday, the 5th of March. The closing date is Friday, the 16th of April, and grants will be made in June, and work for the projects should begin in July. So all three strands aim to support disadvantaged or vulnerable children and young people from 0 to 18 years old. Local or national children's charities that have an annual income of 500,000 or more will be eligible to apply for funding under Strand 1 and Strand 2, which is ensuring basic needs and improving well-being. Local or national children's charities that have an annual income of 250,000 or more will be eligible to apply for funding under Strand 3, which is reducing inequality through creative engagement. A children's charity is defined as a registered charity where children or young people form a key part of the organisation's mission and that works regularly with this cohort. So overall, we have approximately 2.5 million for this grant round. Organisations can apply for funds between 25,000 and 150,000, which should be spent down in 1 year. Please note, organisations applying to Strand 3, which is reducing inequality through creative engagement, cannot apply for more than 50% of their 2019 annual income. When you're applying, your budgets must be detailed and realistic. Each organisation that applies can only apply to one of the strands. Proposals should be for new work only. For organisations with branch networks, the application must be submitted by the head organisation. Schools, sports bodies and childcare facilities are not eligible to apply. So for the first strand, ensuring basic needs, proposals to this strand should ensure children's basic needs are met, like warmth, security, safety, food and housing. Some examples of projects may include alleviating the pressures of poverty through food and hygiene hampers, access to education or additional supports for children and young people with additional needs, ensuring access to basic needs for children and young people in unsuitable accommodation, research into ensuring basic needs for children and young people in the longer term. And just to note that these examples are by no means exhaustive, and we welcome applications for whatever you have in mind. These are just examples. So for strand 2, improving well-being, proposals to this strand should create opportunities to improve the physical and mental health of children who are disadvantaged or have additional needs. Again, some examples of projects may include innovative programs that will address physical and mental health needs of children and young people, projects that encourage engagement in physical and mental well-being activities, projects that encourage skills development for a cohort or age group, projects that improve access to sport or activities for children and young people with physical and intellectual disabilities, research projects into mental or physical health. And for the last strand, reducing inequality through creative engagement, proposals for this strand should create opportunities for children to engage with creative and cultural activities that enhance their personal development. And again, some examples of projects may include access to arts, theatre, music, dance for disadvantaged groups, encouraging personal development for children and young people through creativity, art, play or music therapy, expressing identities through creativity, education and training through creativity, and research around creativity and disadvantage. Exceptions to the above are for charities where children do not form a key part of their mission, but who regularly work with one or more of the vulnerable groups listed below, may be eligible to apply for a project that is specific for that vulnerable group. And those vulnerable groups are as follows: travellers and Roma children and young people, asylum seeker and refugee children and young people, LGBTI children and young people, children and young people with physical or intellectual disabilities, children and young people in unsuitable accommodation, for example, emergency accommodation, refuges, unsafe homes, halting sites, etc., children and young people with severe long-term illness. Proposals to the fund can include staff time costs if those costs are specifically related to the project you are applying for. Equipment and small capital costs will only be considered if they are fundamental to the project. We are not able to fund building or restoration work, vehicles, or core costs, and we are not able to fund ongoing work. All proposals should be for new and innovative work. Collaboration between organisations is encouraged where measurable impact is increased for the beneficiaries. The organisation who is applying for the grant must be eligible based on the criteria above and should be the lead partner in the project. They will be the point of contact for queries, payment and reporting. Projects with a total cost of less than 100,000 should be completed within 12 months of receiving the grant, which will be in June, and projects larger than 100,000 can run for longer than 12 months. The timeline should be clearly outlined in the application form. So what the Toy Show Grants Round will not cover: profit-making enterprises, sports organisations, schools or colleges, childcare facilities, religious or political activities, animal welfare organisations, projects that have already happened, proposals from individuals, proposals that are missing the required governance documents, projects taking place outside the Republic of Ireland. So again, as I've mentioned before, the grants round will close at 4:30 p.m. on Friday the 16th of April. All applications must meet the criteria above and must include a detailed realistic budget and timeline for the project. When submitting your application, all organisations will be required to upload digital copies of the following governance documents: your organisation's constitution or memorandum and articles of association, your organization's bank or credit union statement header, your organization's 2019 annual accounts, and your organization's safeguarding policies for children.
So I'm just going to run through a couple of examples of applications that we might see to this fund. This is to give you a bit of a background of the kind of work we want to see and the level of detail that we want to see in your applications. So in this example, we're looking at a test charity that works with children with disabilities. So already we can see that they fit the criteria, given that their mission is focused towards children, and provided that their project is also focused towards children, then they would definitely be eligible for the fund. They've also gone into a bit of detail in terms of the work that they do, so that they're providing therapy and personal development through art and dance and play. So you can use this question to also explain a little bit about the kind of work that you do day to day. One of the other things to note here is the organisation's annual income for 2019 is 300,000. So this means that they're not eligible to apply for strands 1 and 2, but they are eligible to apply for strand 3, which is reducing inequality through creative engagement. So as you can see, their organisation is pretty much geared towards that anyway. So when we look at their project, it's probably going to be quite a good one. I'm going to compare this with example 2, which is an LGBT plus organisation focused on supporting and empowering LGBT plus people in rural Ireland. So they're not immediately supporting and empowering children and young people, but they are one of the groups listed previously in the criteria of a marginalised group, and provided their project is working with children or young people, then they themselves are eligible to apply for this grant round. And then if we have a look at their annual income, it's 650,000, which is over the 500,000 threshold. So they could apply for strand 1, 2, or 3. They have that flexibility there. So they've also said that although they are focused on LGBT plus people in rural Ireland, they've mentioned in their in the first question there that they do support young people through these peer support groups. So already we can see that they are doing some work with young people, and then with their project we can see sort of the work that they're doing to work out whether it fits the criteria. So we're going to follow this application from this LGBT plus organisation. So when you get to the project details section of the application form, there are a couple of questions. The first one is whether the project is new work or existing work. And we can see that this is new work, which is exactly what we want to see for this grant round. Under the project name, they're looking at researching into the effects of feeling isolated on young people and them coming out. So this gives us a little bit of an overview of what they're doing, and then they use the next question to really go into detail about it. So in this question here, they're describing their project and how it meets the objectives of this strand in the fund. So this organisation is applying to strand 2, which is improving wellbeing. And so in this question here, they're talking about what their research project will be and how it fits the fund. So they're giving us a little bit of background here that they believe that isolation felt by young people in rural Ireland, coupled with the isolation of the pandemic, is having detrimental effects on the mental health of young people who are LGBT+, and then that's affecting whether they're coming out or not to their friends and family. So they've gone into a little bit of detail here about why they're running the project, and they've really explained sort of what that research is going to be. When organisations are answering these questions, we really want to see a lot of detail here. So we really want to understand what this project would look like so that when the assessors are assessing it, they can really understand it and really see why it's necessary. And then in that final sentence there, they've explained how it meets the objectives of the strand. So they've said that in the long term, it will allow for better support for LGBT+ young people in rural Ireland, provided by themselves and other organisations. So they could have linked it a little bit better back to the strand, which was improving wellbeing, but it's clear to see that the research that they're going to do, although not in the short term, in the long term, is going to improve the mental health of LGBT+ young people in rural Ireland. So the next couple of questions are around the need of the project and why the organisation is best placed to lead it. So here's the opportunity to go really into the detail of the context here. So they've explained the mental health benefits for LGBT+ young people in finding support and acceptance with other young LGBT+ people. And then through isolation, especially through the pandemic, not being able to share these experiences and having an adverse effect on mental health. So they've given us a good background here. It's really current, really contextual, and so we can really understand why this project is important. They've linked this need for the project through to how they're going to tackle the issue that they see here. So you can see in the final sentence, the evidence collected through this research will be used to amplify the voices and needs of LGBT+ young people in rural Ireland, so there are more supports available. So that's what they're trying to do. They see this need, that there's isolation. This research is going to show them how to tackle it and how to alleviate it, and then they're going to act on it to make more support available. The next question, why is your organisation best placed to lead this project? This is where applicants can really tell us about the work that organisations are doing. So we want to see that Test Charity here, this LGBT+ charity, is the best organisation to run this project rather than another one. And it also gives organisations an opportunity to explain, to sort of go through some of the strengths and successes of the charity, which is going to explain why they're best placed to lead this project. So here they've explained that they've commissioned research previously around older LGBT+ people, so we already know that they're capable of doing this work. And the network that they're in will really help them disseminate the research and make a wider impact. So we can see here they are quite well placed to complete this research, and we can see that in the past they've done it before and they've had success there. Just to note that any of the questions that have a red line down the side, these questions need to be completed, and if a question doesn't get completed, if someone forgets to answer a question, when you try to submit, the application form will tell you that you need to go back and complete that question, as it's a necessary one for us to complete the assessing. So looking at the project budget, this is where we want to see all the detail of the proposal. So this project is going to cost €26,000, which is just above the limit for this grant round, which is €25,000 to €150,000. So they're within those brackets, which is good. When they're talking about how much has been raised so far, they haven't raised anything. and that's okay. We don't expect organisations to have raised funds so far for these projects, but if the total cost is more than what the organisation is applying for, then we just need to see how that gap is being funded, whether that's through other donors and trusts and maybe statutory funding, or whether it's through fundraising events. And then we can see that the cost is 26,000 and they're applying for us for that amount. So we are funding the full amount of this project. And then looking at the breakdown of these costs, it's a one-year project, so all of their costs are covered in the first year. And they've put in a real good level of detail here. So the researcher fees, they've broken down into how much it's going to cost per day, and they believe it's going to be 65 days of work. So in total, just this research aspect is 13,000. And then they've showed us the workshop costs, the management costs, and the launch costs. And they've used the description breakdown column to give us lots of detail there. And this is what we want to see. We want to see how something like staff costs or researcher costs are broken down for this proposal. And as Adele said, the staff costs in relation to this project are relevant and are eligible to include in the budget, but we do want to see this breakdown. So for example, in this one, we can see that the management costs is going to take this charity 21 days of work to complete this project alongside the researcher. And at €300 per day, it's going to cost them as an organisation €6,300. So costs like that can be included, where the direct staff salaries related to this project can be included, but a proposal where it's purely core costs for staff salaries wouldn't be eligible. So then the next part of the application is looking at the impact. So this is where we want to see the impact on the intended beneficiaries, so young LGBT plus people in rural Ireland, and then on the wider community as well. So that might be other organisations working in a similar area, or in the wider sector in terms of government funding, or it might well be in the wider community of rural Ireland, for example, in this case. So in terms of the intended beneficiaries, they're wanting to build this strategy in supporting and empowering young people in rural Ireland. So these young people will be impacted through the new work that they're going to be doing, the new peer support groups that they're going to be running off the back of this research. And they've explained that they want to engage in new ways of working with young people and really improve mental health in the long term. So we can see this is quite a long-term project, and that's okay. And we will work with this organisation to see the impact over multiple years if this is the case. They've also said that they're going to be using feedback to measure this, and this level of detail is really good. We want to see how this impact is going to be measured, and how we expect the organisation to see their success. And then in the impact on the wider community, so they're going to work with other organisations, they've said. So they've mentioned that it's currently 18 different organisations, and they're wanting to circulate their research to these organisations so that they can also improve their work, making a larger impact overall. So we can see both on the intended beneficiaries and the wider community that there's going to be a good level of impact. How this application can be better for these two questions is we want to see a bit more detail in terms of the numbers. So how many LGBT plus young people they might expect to work with in comparison to currently, or the kind of work that they'll be doing in the long term, and what their KPIs might be in terms of measuring the project over the duration of it. But it's a pretty good answer to the question. We do just want to see that extra level of detail there. And then in the next question on how they're monitoring and measuring it, they've explained a bit more about the feedback events and the surveys that they're wanting to do to really plot that long-term impact. So finally, when applications are submitted, every applicant needs to submit 4 documents as well. So Adele's already mentioned that it's the Constitution, the bank statement header, recent annual accounts. So we're looking at the 2019 ones for this grant round, and then the safeguarding policies for children. If there are any issues in terms of uploading these documents, sometimes this happens but please make sure that you're submitting well ahead of the deadline so that we can help you if this is the case. What we'll do is we can upload the documents manually for you if you email them to us, but we can only do this ahead of the deadline. So just make sure there's loads of time to complete this. And then the documents will be attached using the attachments button at the bottom there in black. And all of those can be uploaded with your application. You can save your application as draft as you go along. So you can start it on one day and finish it a few days later, and everything will be saved. But please make sure that you do hit submit at the end. We can't accept applications that have only been saved as a draft. They must be submitted in the end. And when you have submitted, you'll receive an email from us saying that it's been submitted. And if you don't receive this email, then it's unlikely that we have received your application. This email may be in your junk inbox, so make sure you check there. And if you still can't find it, let us know and we'll track it down for you. But yes, we can only assess and we can only grant based on applications that have been submitted. So finally, we're just going to go through a couple of frequently asked questions that we receive, especially for this grant round, but often across a lot of grant rounds that we run. So my organisation isn't eligible, so can I still receive this funding? So organisations that don't fit the criteria, whether that's the criteria for their project or the criteria for their organisation, they're not eligible for funding. And any ineligible applications submitted won't receive funding at all. However, eligible organisations can collaborate with ineligible organisations. So if you aren't eligible, maybe because of your annual income, you can collaborate with an organisation who is eligible, and you can still see the benefits of that funding, and your beneficiaries can still see the benefits of that funding. Does the project need to be for new work? So yes, proposal should be for new and innovative work. We can't fund ongoing work through this grant round, but current work that is being developed significantly and demonstrates this increased impact because of this development may be eligible for funding. We recommend that you contact info@foundation.ie to discuss this a little bit further, and we can chat through your application with you if you'd like, to really understand what this work might involve. Can I apply if my organisation is based in Northern Ireland? So not in this grant round. We're not able to accept applications from Northern Ireland, but the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland, who is in receipt of 10% of the funding from the RTE Toy Show appeal, will be distributing grants through their own grant round. So have a look at their website for information on that. Can we apply for a project in collaboration with another organisation? We really want to encourage collaboration. This is the kind of work that we want to see, especially where the impact is substantially increased for the beneficiaries. So as mentioned before, the organisation who is applying must be eligible, and they should be the lead partner in the project. Those that they collaborate with don't necessarily need to be eligible for this grant round, provided the impact is really great across the community and for the intended beneficiaries. We don't mind who it is that they're collaborating with, provided that they are eligible themselves. This organisation will be the point of contact for any queries, and if they're successful, for payment and then also reporting on the proposal. So on to the reporting itself. So will I be required to report on what the grant has been used for? So yes, we do want to see reports on how the project is going, and this will be through an interim and an outcome report during the project itself. So these will usually be at regular intervals, but this will be detailed in the grant agreement, which will be made prior to payments being made, what this reporting will look like. And we'll also let you know the kind of evidence and the kind of data that we want you to be collecting throughout the project so that you can report on it successfully. The rest of our frequently asked questions can be found on our website under the RTE Toy Show Appeal page. If your query hasn't been answered on the website or through this webinar, please email info@foundation.ie and we'll be able to get back to you.
So thanks everyone for listening to our presentation. If, as mentioned by Rosie just there, if you have any questions after this presentation and after reading our FAQs on our webpage, just let us know and we'll be very happy to get back to you. Thank you.